It's that time of year again. The bandwagon gets going and we have some choices to make. Let's take a look at a mock draft for the Kansas City Chiefs. Welcome back to RGR Football. I'm Ryan, and this is me going rogue. Welcome back, everybody. This is the official off-season transition here, and we're going to get going today because there's something very cool that I'm going to start doing for you guys. As we go along, the members are going to get a different view of it, may actually get to help me run along through it. But today, we're going to go through the first mock draft. This is pre-combine. This is the week. Later in the week, we're going to see some workouts at the Combine for a lot of the prospects, and I wanted to get this in beforehand so we could take a look at where they are now. I'm going to walk you through this mock draft. I'm going to explain my selections and tell you what I'm thinking and where I'm coming from. It'll give us a lot of stuff to discuss on the live Q&As. It'll give us stuff to come back with, and I encourage you guys to do your own kind of research and mocking as well. So, that said, a lot of needs, specifically, none of the services, and I'm going to use the Draft Network today. They have a great site, a great mock draft machine, and our friends over there, Joe Marino and Kyle Krabs, all those guys do a great job. I don't necessarily agree with their predictive board all the time, and I'm absolutely certain that the teams don't always agree with it, but that's what we're going to use today. There's another that we may use later on that allows you to actually draft according to some other actual notable draft analysts lists themselves in terms of their rankings, and we can go over that when we get to it. But for today, this will be our first experiment. We're going to run through, and the Chiefs right now have 5 picks, 1 through 5. No 6th or 7th rounders, so it's going to be a little bit abbreviated. But this is how it'll set up when you come over here, and it doesn't matter if you're a premium member like me, so I can do some trades if we get offers, or if you're just walking in off the street, you can check it out. You can set this up to use these parameters. And I'm just going to go at normal speed so we have a chance to talk a little bit as we go through today. So I'm going to get this started, and you're going to see how it launches. And I think that's going through now. It's going to start going through what it thinks is predicting these selections for this particular team that's on the board at the time. And this isn't going super fast. It does go quite a bit faster when we want to run through it, but you'll see the selections come off the board. When we get to the Chiefs' first particular pick, we'll take a look at what it has listed for needs, etc., and not necessarily the order that I agree with. I think you all know at least part of my philosophy on how I go about building a team. My whole concept is that this is supposed to be an exercise of a perspective of Brett Veach and Andy Reid. That's what I do. At Rogue Analytics, we analyze all the athleticism numbers to go into the decision-making process to try and help teams get better about the athletes that they're choosing. Again, it doesn't replace film. It doesn't replace the interviews and certainly the medicals, which the medicals and the interviews are going to be huge things this week at the Combine. But what happens to a player and what he's able to do on the field is determined by athleticism, by a long point. Yes, coaching, experience. You can get some diamonds in the rough from some lower levels of college football that you feel you can train up, that you can coach up and get there. And so that allows you a little bit of playroom, but the athleticism kind of carries through. That said, there are premiums put on particular positions. And what this shows you here, and if you're not familiar, I'll share it with you. This is what TDN has for the Chiefs' current needs. I happen to agree with need number 1. I think I'd probably move linebacker up a little bit farther. I think they can get by with some of the offensive linemen that they have. They're losing a number, and if you haven't seen any of the free agency threads that I've done, I'm going to do more videos this week on them as well. Going to be a lot of questions here. I think I would move linebacker up a bit. That's just me. And you never know exactly what's going to happen. So that said, this is where they think they are, and we'll walk through that as we make each selection here today. What's gone on to this point, you'll see some guys that I actually really like are going pretty high according to this, and I don't know that I disagree with it in any way at all. Let's see, where'd my guy go? There he is. If the Chiefs were going to try to add to their wide receiver group. I do still feel like Sammy Watkins is going to be released. They could be working on a restructure. That'd be great. I'd love to see that. But his salary base is going to have to come down quite a bit. His cap number is going to have to come down quite a bit. I think that's going to require basically a reboot of a contract. So it's kind of a longer shot. But what that tells you is the guy that I like best in this particular wide receiver class, and I haven't done all of them. I've done the big 7 at this point in terms of making sure that I see some film on it. Both the broadcast and a little bit of all 22. My guy right now is Ruggs because I feel like he can do anything. I think he can fit into this offense. But you see here at 13 is where he went, and that would take a significant trade up, and I just can't see the Chiefs doing that. They're very excited to have a first-round pick. If you missed Brett Veach's conversation last week with BJ Kissel, very excited to have a first-round pick. It's been quite a bit for him. So I can understand that. So I don't see them really giving that up and other picks as well to try and move up for a wide receiver. I feel like there's plenty in this class. It's not something that I would do, but I do like the idea of Ruggs in this offense. Some other guys that I do like, Christian Fulton went in the teens here. That doesn't necessarily happen all the time in this particular mock draft machine. So keep an eye on that. Sometimes that will change. And as we come down, we see a couple of edges, running backs. DeAndre Swift went in the first round. Don't see that every time I run this, but very interesting stuff. And that brings us at 32 to the Chiefs. So as we look at how this fell out, you see in the middle of the board here is Grant Delbet, a guy that was considered a first rounder a year ago, and I think played okay. I haven't done all of his film. I've read a couple of reports on him, and I've seen one game in terms of looking at the film. I saw a couple live as well. I do feel that he is a second rounder at this point. I don't think that the teams are going to place him in the top round, both for positional value as well as his performance last season. I think there are bigger fish to fry. So while he's available here, I don't think I want to go get him yet. If the Chiefs traded back, if they're in the top 5 of the second round, then I would definitely consider doing that and making a selection of him, even though the Chiefs are pretty good shape at the safety position. What we saw with Tyrann Mathieu being able to play in the nickel, that allows you some flexibility there. If you can bring on talent and he's the best player available, there is that option. I could see that happening. Now looking again, the quandary here becomes who else is available, and you see that there's a couple of highly ranked running backs. I won't be making a running back selection. I don't think you spend a first rounder on a running back, period. I just don't see the value in it, especially when you talk about guys that we've seen play well for the Chiefs in years past, including Damian, who's still under contract. There's no reason to go out and spend that. So we're getting rid of the running backs. Jordan Love's climbing up some boards. Good for him. Not somebody we're interested. Don't need that. Honestly, I have some free agent theories that I think might actually work out for the Chiefs for a backup quarterback position, but certainly don't need to be spending a first or second round pick on a quarterback here with the MVP in-house. So that brings us down here, and we get into the guys that are ranked right around where they belong. And I'll tell you this. It is tempting because of the way that this fell. I haven't done the Auburn kid's tape yet. Don't know him terribly well. A lot of receivers here. Like I said, it's a deep receiver class. And I'm a little bit surprised here that both Murray and Queen are available. Now, Queen's been getting a lot of attention lately. And I can understand why. He is a very fluid athlete. I do like the way that he is blitzed. And clearly he's comfortable in coverage. In fact, these two guys together are really the two guys that I would think fit what the Chiefs want to do in the nickel package. You still have Damian and you still have Hitch. Reggie Ragland is a free agent, but he's not really involved in the nickel. So either of these guys, I think, are pluses in terms of their coverage ability. So the question becomes, who can actually be on the field for 3 downs? Can either of them be on the field for 3 downs? That's my question. Because I see both of these, and from the tape that I've done on both of them, and I have done at least a couple of games on both of these guys, and we're going to limit this and take a look at the linebacker group all by itself, just to show you who else is there. I like Malik Harrison. He is a 3-down backer, in my opinion. He isn't as explosive. He doesn't have the speed and the coverage ability of Queen and Murray. I get that. Here's my thing. If he's going to be out there at 95, which I'm not sure I buy. I think he's probably gone in the 70s. but he may not be explosive in the pass as much, but he can play the run much better than these guys. And what we've seen is where you had to platoon Reggie and sometimes Damian in and out of the lineup here in 2019. In 2020, it'd be great to have a backer that can play first down, can play second down, and can stay out there in the nickel, probably with Hitch, because Hitch isn't going anywhere, and play the nickel as well. So I'd like to see a 3-down backer more than I would like to see Queen, who I think 1 year production is always a little bit of a question, but certainly looks to be a guy that I feel can play in the nickel. I just don't know what he can do in first and second down. And the Chiefs, we don't know what's going to happen with Mike Pennell. If Reggie's gone, you're still looking at a team that is susceptible in stopping the run. So I'm really looking for a fully well-rounded 3-down linebacker. So I'm going to hold off on selecting a linebacker here. And unfortunately, that does tie our hands a little bit with the players that are available at this point. So as this board is falling out, I don't think Ross Blaylock's a player of enough caliber. I don't agree with him being ranked this high to begin with. I probably put him in the 40s at this point. Again, haven't done all of his film, just taken a cursory glance. And then you see more wide receivers. The Auburn corner, not a huge fan. Another wide receiver. And then comes my guy Diggs. And Diggs is a guy that I've liked for quite a while because he's versatile. He's big. He is... honestly, he reminds me of Sean Smith in terms of his size and his ability to use functional strength to reroute players. I think he is a little bit better in zone than man, but Spags played, I think it was 53% for the year in man, and I think that was an adjustment towards the guys that he had in Charvarius Ward. So I feel like this might be a little bit of a stretch here at 32, but if nothing else, I think the corner position has better value, and I'm looking for a 3-down linebacker down the line, and it looks like I'm going to have a chance to go after my guy from Ohio State. So for right now, at least this pre-combine week, I'm going to go ahead and take Diggs and get the Chiefs somebody to put in the defensive backfield that can help protect one side of the field. Right now, they have Fenton and they have Ward. And as this ticks down, we're going to see everybody else comes along. They're going to take those players, and the board falls a little bit differently every time. Today, we're going to see what happens here. The second round really opens things up, and because we didn't trade back, this is going to be a pick that has to be a player that the Chiefs feel can hit the field and actually make a contribution. That's going to be important. Love the way Hilaire runs. Again, not a position that I'm prepared to take in the second round either. I won't look at running backs until the third. I just don't see that there is that much value to it. So that's where I'm coming from. AJ Terrell, I know a lot of folks have talked about him. We already picked a corner for this group. Had this been reversed and we went linebacker, I would be looking very hard at him in the second round. Kyle Duggar is a really interesting guy. I think he's very, very athletic. I'm really interested to see what his testing numbers come back at. I think he's a very cerebral player. I really like him. And if it were a luxury that the Chiefs could take a safety here, a guy that maybe could play all over the field, I would look at him too. He's a very interesting player. This feels a little rich for my blood for him. Maybe I'm wrong, but we'll see what happens with him. So that brings me down to what's in here. I don't think I can take either of those guys. You're looking at a quarterback the Chiefs don't need. Florida edges. Ja'Kai Polite should still be in the minds of people. I'm not 100% that that's where they want to go. And I'm continuing to come down here, and now we're getting at 63 where we're starting to take a look at a little bit of reaching. You could maybe say 10 spots is a little bit far. 20 is definitely a little bit far. So I feel like they're in pretty good position here. This is a toss-up, and this is one of the things why in the members, when we get the memberships up and going, we're going to do this as a collective. We'll do this on a live stream, and then we'll share it with everybody, because this comes down to these are questions. Now, I don't have my board ready yet. It's so early in the process, but the Chiefs probably do. They've done a lot of homework on here. There's way more corners that I like that are still going to be here, maybe even next round. So the question becomes, do I take one of them now and double up at the corner position? I really like that idea, but you never know what's going to happen. But really, I think what comes in here is the way that you can help this team overall is to give them someone else that can spell Fish and Schwartz if they need to. Somebody that can come down inside. And I can't remember exactly how tall Wilson is, 6'7". He's a big kid. I like the way that he plays. The guards, which is what I would be looking for here, most importantly, they're gone. Anybody until maybe Shane Lemieux, and I think Lemieux's a little bit undersold here on this list. Not a guy that I would be really screaming for it here. I like Damian Lewis, but I think you can get him next round. So the question is this board a little bit low on Malik Harrison? Is he really a third rounder? Because I don't think he is, in my personal opinion. Troy Dye's way too light. He will get destroyed in the run game. Not very happy with him. Again, a coverage guy, honestly more of a strong safety in my opinion at the next level. So it's about how this board's going to feel. I think this is way low on Malik Harrison. So I do feel he's going to be a second rounder, early third at the very least. So I'm going to go ahead and take him as the Chiefs' second pick because he is worth that. And I don't think this really reflects what the reality is going to be for where his draft position is. What do you guys think? Leave your comments below. Do you think 95 is a good ranking for Malik Harrison in this particular class? Do you think I just made a huge reach by going out and doing that? I do feel he's a cusp second, third round talent. So selecting him there didn't bother me at all. Did it bother you? I'm really interested to see what you guys think. There's plenty of players still on the board that we're going to see this come down here as we go. Now we're back to the Chiefs pick again. And I didn't see where they came off. Try Pride at 85, right where he was thought to go. 82 for Duggar. I'd like to see that he got drafted there. And Dye did go in the 70s. So I do feel like they got the cornerback rush at the top of the third. That's interesting. Something to keep an eye on. And so now you get to the point where who's left where you like them. And the guy that I really like, not the greatest, but at a third round selection, I feel he's decent value. I think he's somebody that can compete for a job right away, depending with what goes on with the rest of the interior offensive linemen. Not as good as his buddy Cushenberry, but I think Damian Lewis from LSU is a guard that I can feel good about coming in, having winning experience, having a guy that can hold down his own. He plays well from the tape that I've watched. He passes off well. He does that zone block thing pretty well. And I feel like he could be a young addition that can really add to what the Chiefs are doing on offense. But before I go ahead and jump on that, there are some other things to talk about here. The tight end position in particular. This is probably the sweet spot for the tight ends. I don't think this is a very top-heavy class. I don't think there's any really standout tight ends. But the third to fifth round is about the area for them. And you've probably heard a lot of hype about Adam Trautman. He's here. Hit a lot of catches. Working on his stats for the Rogue Analytics draft guide. That'll be out there as well. And if you don't know about the Rogue Analytics, that's my analytics company. All athleticism and production's on the side. You have film grades, you have medical and mental eval, then you have athleticism, and then you have production. That all feeds into the formula that every team uses. They just use it in different ways. So production is still important as well, and he's going to fare pretty dang well on the production side of it. You have wide receivers now, which is where I would start to think if the Chiefs really love one of these guys like KJ Hill, who is super fast. But again, I can't remember his height. I think he's on the smaller end, 6 foot even. Okay, so he's bigger than Tyreek. Van Jefferson, a guy who really blew up at the Senior Bowl and gives you 6'2". Yeah, a bigger target, a guy that could play the X. If Sammy does depart, that gives you an option there. So I do like the idea of him. Not always sold on Florida guys. Just something about that school. I don't feel the immediacy come from them, and I don't see a lot of them transition that great into the pros. So just a slight hesitation on my part there. And then we get to the guy that I think is the most intriguing for me, a guy that hasn't had a great college career, but has really come on this season as LSU went to its championship game. And that's Thaddeus Moss. That's Randy's kid. He's not as athletic as his dad by any means, but he's still pretty good, and he gives the Chiefs another weapon at tight end that I think could be really interesting. At the end of the day, the two LSU guys is kind of where it comes down to me. Safeties, again, I don't feel it's a priority. I mean, Tyler Biadasz is still here too. He's more of a road grader in terms of, I don't feel he's exceptional at the zone. I don't feel his play strength is that great. So I actually would probably have Damian Lewis really comparable with him here, and they're right next to each other. So I'm going to, again, go with a guy that I think I've seen play pretty well and I think will fit into the Chiefs scheme pretty well. And I'm going to select Damian Lewis if I can make sure that I hit the right button. There we go. And so now we've addressed the big needs. And I feel like, personally, I don't feel the second round selection of Malik Harrison was a stretch. Some of you might, some teams might even. But if he's there, he can do the job that the Chiefs need. At this point, it's all about the top 100 picks. They have to start contributing. So you have to have a place to put them, in my opinion. It's got to be best player available at a position of need in terms of at least your 2 deep. Maybe they don't have to be a starter, but they need to be a 2 deep. And I think that's really, really important. So as we see, we've crossed off, and at this point, we have the corner, the top need on my board, linebacker and interior lineman. Okay. Everything's gravy now. Everything's the best player that can fit in and possibly compete for playing time. That's where day 3 guys are. We are solidly at the end of round 4 in day 3. The Chiefs had 2 selections left. So when I look at this particular group, again, a lot more receivers. Not sure any of those guys really stand out to me. Hill's an interesting guy from Miami, an edge rusher. Not somebody that I'm going to run around with. I like Pittman out of USC. I do like him, and I feel like he might be able to fit into this particular offense pretty well. But the guy that's kind of got my sweetheart roll up is Chase Claypool. I like what he does. Is he ready to be an X, to be a go-to guy? I mean, he's 6'4". He could almost be a tight end. And that gray area of Travis Kelce from being a tight end to splitting him out as a wide receiver, I think that is getting grayer. So maybe Claypool could do that. This is a 4th round pick, so I'm not overly concerned about getting value here. There's a lot of guys here that are value. I look farther down. I like Anthony Jennings as a power rusher kind of guy. I know he's played off the ball as well. So in terms of doing the Okafor kind of drops deal out of the defensive end position, I think he's another option that could be there. I think he's more of a 5th round guy than a 4th round, my personal opinion. But he's a guy that I think could come in and compete and make some hay that way. I don't think you have to put all the eggs in the basket for him, though. So at this point, it comes down to me. There's a Stanford tight end that I like later. We missed out on Thaddeus Moss, so are there tight ends here? We might be looking at that next. So at this point, the guys that are standing out to me in this particular mock are Claypool and Pittman. A little bit of wide receiver help that I think could really come in handy down the line. I'm not seeing a whole lot of other options that aren't pretty supreme reaches at this point. So those are my options. What do you guys think? I'm going to tell you here what I'm going to do here in a second, but you tell me right now, where are you going? I think at this point, I think Pittman's still higher on my board overall, so I'm going to go with him. We're going to give the Chiefs a little bit of extra weaponry at the wide receiver position. I do expect Pringle to push for playing time. I do expect to see him play a bigger role. Interested to see what Kemp comes back with after his injury, so there's some room there as well. But let's continue to add to mix, continue to restock weapons for Patrick Mahomes in this offense. I think that's important. Now, I think this is going to change during free agency. So this pre-combine mock draft here is really reflecting where they are right now, which is virtually no movement on anyone that was on the roster last year. We don't know anything about Chris Jones or anything like that. So we're not going to make any striking changes to try and address any of that yet. You know, if we've taken the wide receiver, we're getting that off the board. Now, you know, could P. Ryan jump in there? So he's a running back with a little bit of moxie. I don't think he's Andy Reid's kind of running back, though. I might like him, but I don't think he will. So as we come down here, Heron from Wake Forest. Not a guy that I think has done a ton to earn playing time, so I'm going to shy away from him at this point. I do have more work to do on him, though. Some edge guys. You can always use edge guys. What are the big 4 positions, right? QB, pass rusher, pass protector, specifically tackle, and corner. And we've addressed a lot of those. Do we go back to the well and look for more corner? You never know. Right now, there's very, very little on the roster. I'm just looking down here to see if there's anybody that stands out to me as the Chiefs' last pick. We're on the board at 159. There will be some comp picks, I believe, in between here, too. We'll see what happens with those particular scenarios. But nobody's really standing out to me farther down that tells me, hey, this guy might be higher on the Chiefs board than he is on anybody else's board. Jake Hanson's an interesting guy from Oregon. He's a little underpowered, but I think in the zone blocking scheme, he could do some damage. Is it a reach here? Yeah, I think he's probably a sixth rounder, but we're nearly in the sixth round. So what do you want to do? Do we fill out and double up on that offensive line, or do we double up on DB? I think DB is the more important at this point. You also have another linebacker from LSU, a guy that I think has flown under the radar because of how good Patrick Queen has been. He's a little bit more robust. I think he's heavier too, played at 233. Another good-sized guy, and he moves pretty well. I'm tempted to go there, but just out of experience and the guys that I like, I'd rather come with an edge, a corner, one of those two. So it comes down to me, a guy that I think is a little underrated in Lamar Jackson, cornerback out of Nebraska, versus the linebacker. And I don't think because Ben Neiman's going to play in the nickel. Still don't know what's going to happen with Dorian Daniel. Maybe he plays more in 2020 after adapting to Spag's system. So even though I like Phillips, especially as a fifth-round selection, I don't think that I'm going to go there at this point. So I'm just going to double up on the corner for today and call that done. And we're going to go with Lamar Jackson from Nebraska. So that's the Chiefs' current last pick. We're going to let this run through the rest of the mock, and it will finish it up for us. Let me know what you guys think. Does it ring any bells? Anything stand out to you that you didn't like? This is just my first take at it this particular week, the week of the Combine. I'm really looking forward to seeing how some of these players play out. I will admit that there are a number of guys that will stand out that I don't see coming. Happens every year, but I'll be covering it for you. There's plenty of guys that I think are going to confirm their draft stock. Film grades are the biggest part of an evaluation for most teams, but being able to confirm that with athleticism, being able to show that you still have a little bit of upside athletically, is a big deal when it comes to the Combine. And so there are some of these guys that will actually change and will move their draft stock a little bit. It's not going to be drastic. The public and some online analysts are going to make drastic jumps in their grades for some of the players based on the Combine numbers. The teams aren't going to do that. So I don't think that it's anything to get too excited about. This is the way it started off. And by the way, just to confirm everybody's thoughts, it was Burrow and Young 1 and 2. I'm going to take a look again just to review real quickly. Diggs was ranked in the 40s. We went with him because of the need at the position. The Chiefs are very low on cornerbacks. He's a guy that can play in both systems. He's big, he's strong. He does need to work on a few things, but I think getting coached up at the NFL level is going to help him. He certainly has been able to adapt to the Saban system, and I feel like that puts a mental stress on players that can carry over to the NFL pretty readily. So I'm happy with that. I grabbed Malik Harrison, who I think is really going to be somewhere in the 70s overall. So maybe a touch early, but I like what he does, and I think he can play 3 downs and give you enough coverage that he doesn't have to come off the field at all, and he can be somebody that you can roll out with Hitch and play the two of them all game long and be all right. Then went Damian Lewis, an interior offensive lineman from LSU, a guy with good power, plays in the zone. I like the way that he moves, and I think he'll fit into the scheme rather well, especially because I don't know what they're going to do with Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. That contract's pretty huge this year, and I don't know exactly what it's going to mean for him going into next season. Then came back on day 3 and got Michael Pittman Jr., a guy to add to the wide receiver core, and Lamar Jackson to, again, get another athletic, experienced body into the cornerback room and see what they can come up with. That's what I have for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed this. This is just my first go-through. We'll probably tweak it a little bit, and maybe we'll do a crazy mock one time. We'll do something a little bit more serious. Another, I thought this was kind of my take on being the GM. If I were in the room with Brett Veach, this is the things that I would have told him to do. So let me know what you guys think. I appreciate you checking this one out. Let me know if you like the mocks on this format. I hope that you do, and we'll continue to move forward with them. That said, leave your comment below if you did. If you're not subbed, hit that sub button. Click the bell notification so you know when something new comes out. We're going to continue to have film reviews. Dan will be back with some more. I have some free agency tickers coming along here. A lot of content coming for you, so keep it right here. Appreciate your time today, and I'll check you next time.